Hey everyone, my name is Usman and in this video we'll implement a feature-rich complex rich text editor using Lexical. In this video we'll implement text coloring, how to add tables, images, code blocks and much more. So stick around till the end of the video to learn all of that. Subscribe to the channel, like the video and let's get into it. So these are different operations we'll add in this course. So we can add a table. So let me add a table of 2 rows and 2 columns. I click on add and then you can see that a table gets added. Great. Similarly, I can add an image. So I click on it. I can add an image URL or I can upload an image from my machine and that image will be added. Similarly, I can add a ordered or unordered list. So I can, type different letters and you can see that creates list. Similarly, if I click on this would be converted to an unordered list. Clicking on it again would remove the list. Also, I can change the color of the text. So let me change the color of text to red and change the color of the text. I can also change the background of the text, so I can change it to, let's say, purple, and you'll see that the background changed. I can also embed a YouTube video. So if I click on this button and add a URL, right now I have a YouTube video open. If I click on the embed button, you'll see that the YouTube video embeds here. I can also play it and do certain things with it. Also, I can add a code block, so I can click on this and now I can write code. So right now JavaScript language is selected, so I can write JavaScript here and you can see all the code highlighting and everything. So we'll implement all of this in this course. So yeah, let's do it. So first of all, if you don't know stuff about Lexical and how it works, and also you don't know how to implement these features, etc., I have already made a course, a basic crash course on Lexical of about 50 minutes in which we cover what Lexical is all about, how Lexical works, how you can perform the text formatting operations like these, then alignment options, undo, redo, how you can add headings, how you can persist the data in a state, how you can send the data to the backend and read the data in the rich text editor. So if you want to learn all that, I will link the video in the description, also in the iCard above. So if you want to learn that, you can watch the video and then you can watch this video and continue learning more advanced stuff. If you already know all that, then let's get into it. And now I've cleared everything up and this is basically the same code we had for the Lexical crash course. So let's build the features from here. So let me basically talk about the concept of Lexical, which is node. So everything in Lexical is a node, so we have got these 5 base nodes. So root node is basically the content editable itself, like the portion in which we write stuff. Then you have got some other nodes like the line break node, then the element node. Element node is basically, the p tag or the span tag, etc. Text node is basically any text we are writing inside Lexical. And then we have got a special type of node known as decorator node, which we will touch when we will basically make our own nodes. For the features we'll have in this course, like tables, lists, code blocks, etc., there we will divide the nodes into 2 types. So some of the nodes are already available as part of Lexical. So just like in the case of heading, I basically made something. So I use the create heading node method. Also, if I go to the rich text editor file, I added the heading node here. For some features like tables, lists, etc., these nodes and their respective methods are already available, so we will use them. For some other nodes or other features like images or YouTube embedding, this is not available, so we will have to basically make custom nodes for this. So first of all, we'll add the features which already have nodes as part of the Lexical package, and then we'll make the custom nodes. So let's get into it. So first of all, I will implement the color plugin or the coloring functionality. So for the color plugin, I need to add a color picker. So basically I need to add a color picker component where I have an icon button, and when I click on it, it basically displays a color picker component from which I can select something. So let me add that. So I'll go in components, I'll create a color picker file. So color picker, then RFC. For the UI, I'm using Chakra UI. You can use any library you want. So let me change this to small o. Then its position would be relative, and I'll tell you why in a minute. I'll add an icon button here. So icon button. Then this would have some props. So area level would be change color. Then size would be SM. Variant would be ghost. Color would be 333, so a blackish color, and then an on click, which would be empty for now. So basically I want to absolutely show the color picker component when I click on this button. So for that I'll add a state here. So is open set is open is equal to use state false initially. Here I'll say is open and basically I will show a div which would be absolutely positioned. So position should be absolute, top would be 30 pixel, left would be 30 pixels, z index of 10 so that it is above the rich text editor. Great. And inside it I will import the sketch picker component from React Color. So React Color is an amazing library. It has got an amazing collection of color pickers, so I will choose this one. So I will have a color prop which I will add in a minute and an on change complete. Now this component would be reusable, so I will use this component for changing the color and the background color. So there will be two buttons, so let me add the necessary props here. So color picker props, here I will define them. So interface color picker props, one would be color, then one would be on change, void color would be string. Here I would have an icon. This type would be react element. Let me extract the props here. So color on change icon, on change color would go here. Here I will get the updated color and I will pass it in on change. So color dot hex, so I want the hex value, and icon would go here. Great. Now let me make a color plugin where I will have those two buttons plus the functionality to change the color. So I'll click here, go to the plugins folder and make a file. So color plugin.tsx. Let me make the component. Here I'll add the empty fragments. I'll import color picker. So color picker from the components folder. Let me add the color prop. Let me add some dummy color for now. Then on change, which would be empty for now, and then an icon. So for changing the color, I will use an icon of A. So basically that would show that I want to change the text color. So that would be type. So I'm using icons from React Bootstrap icons. Similarly, I'll copy this and paste it here. For changing the background, I'll use the paint bucket icon. Great. Now let me add this plugin in the toolbar plugin file. So I'll go here. Let me add another Flux container. And yep, I will import it. Great. Let me give it a gap of 1. Now if I go here, you can see the two buttons here. Great. Also, I didn't add the set is open, so I'll add it here. So set is open should be true. Great. Now if I click here, you can see that the color picker opens. Similarly, when I click here, the color picker opens. Great. Now I need to add functionality where if I click on something other than this sketch picker, then it should close it. So for that, I will use a hook from Chakra UI. So that would be use outside click. Let me have a ref. So ref is equal to use ref HTML div element. Initially it would be null. This ref would go here in this box component. And here I'll pass the ref and the handler. So in the handler, I'll say it should set is open to false. So whenever I would click outside of this div, then it should close. So now I click on this. Now I click somewhere else, it closes. Now let's add the color changing functionality. So first I will get the editor as always. So I'll say import from Lexical React, Lexical Composer context, use Lexical Composer context. Great. Now let me make a function update color. So update color would have two properties. So the property value and the color itself. So property would either be background or color, because these are the CSS properties which we can use to update the color. So for the changing the color, I will use the color property. For changing the background, I'll use the background property, and the color would be the actual color which we'll get from the on change. Great. So here I'll call editor.update. So if you want to apply any operation on the editor, on the text, anything, you have to call this function and then add the functionality inside this, otherwise it won't work. So here I'll say const selection is equal to get selection. So we saw this method in the crash course as well. If you want to get the selected text, you do that. Then if there is selection, then I want to use a function. So I will import it from lexical selections. So I'll say import from lexical selection, and that would be path style texts. So I will basically use this function path style text, pass in the selection as the first param, then an object of whatever styles I want to apply to the selection. So this would be an object of styles. So the property would go here because that is dynamic, and the color would go here. Great. Now let me use this. So here I'll say update color. The property should be color. Color should be the color coming from here. Great. Similarly, I'll paste it here. This should be background. Now let me add some text. Now if I go here, I click on red, you'll see that one thing happens, and that is that whenever I click on something other than the text, then the selection goes away, and that is a thing you need to take care of. For that, I will add a CSS property. So I will go to the color picker component, and here I will add user select none. So if we click on something other than the text, the web thinks that we are trying to maybe select that particular thing, and then it deselects the text. So when we add this CSS property, it understands that we're not trying to select anything, we are just clicking on it or doing other operations. So now if I select it and go and click on red, you'll see that it gets the red background and the selection persists. Similarly, I select it, I click on color, let me change the color to white, and it changes to white. Great. Now I need to add something else. Whenever I select something, just like I did for the text formatting operations, just like if I click on this bold button, it gets highlighted, and I can type something else, and if I like deselect it, then you will see that if I select the bolded word, then the bold button gets highlighted, otherwise not. The same thing I want to do for the color as well, so that if I select something and it already has the red background or the white color, if I go here, it should already have the red background selected. So let's do that. So for that, I will copy the same thing I have in the toolbar plugin component. So I'll copy this. I will add it in the color plugin component. So let me add a use effect. Then inside this use effect, I'll add this. So merge register would come from lexical utils. Update toolbar is a function I will have to make. So const update toolbar is equal to an empty function for now. And then here I will add the editor. I'll import the selection change command. Also import the low priority. So now every time I would select something, this update toolbar function would be called. So basically now I need to get the background color and the color of that selected text, and I will update the state, and then basically I will pass the updated state here. Right now I'm passing a hard-coded value. I don't want to do that. So let me add a state here. So use state color bg color set colors. Here we would have the default values. So the default color value would be 000, so black, and the default bg color would be FFF, so white. Then inside this update toolbar function, as always, I will get the selected text. So get selection, then if is range selection, then I'll get the color and background color properties from the text. So for that, I need to use another function which I'll import from the lexical selection package. So get selection style value from property. I'll copy this. I'll say const color is equal to this, and then basically first param would be the selection. The second property would be the name of the property for which I need the CSS value for. So I'll say color, and then I'll pass the default value for the color. So if the selected text hasn't got any color, then it should return the default value. Similarly, I will do the same thing for PG color. Here it would be background, and this would be FFF. I'll set the colors to these colors. Then I'll pass the colors here. So for the color picker for the color, I'll pass the color state. For the color picker for the background color, I'll pass the background color state. Great. Now if I select some text and I go to the color picker, you can see that for the color picker, the white is selected because the text color is white. And if I go here in the background color, you can see that red is pre-selected. So that is great. And we have successfully implemented the color plugin. Now let's implement the list plugin. So in case of list, there are two types of lists. So the ordered list and the unordered list. And basically we'll do the same thing. We'll make a plugin file, then the two icon buttons, etc. So first of all, in order to implement list, we need to add its respective nodes in the nodes array in the list text editor file. So I will do that. So here I'll go and import from lexical list. I will import the list node, and I'll import the list item node. Let me copy these and I'll add it here. Great. So now if I use any command or dispatch any command related to the list, it would work, otherwise it won't work. Same case as I did for the heading node. So I'll create the list plugin file here, list plugin.tsx. Here let me copy the color picker stuff. So icon button, there will be two icon buttons. So let me use the fragment tags icon button and another icon button. Let me import the icon button. Let me remove this and this. The first icon would be for the ordered list. For that, I will have an icon list OL. Cool. Here I will add the area label, add ordered list. For this, I would have the icon list UL. Area label would be add unordered list. Let me import the editor. So same thing, editor is equal to, let me copy the import. So copy, paste. Now for the ordered list, I just have to dispatch a command. So I'll say editor.dispatch command. So let me import the commands. So import from lexical list, insert ordered list command. Great. So I'll pass it here undefined. Similarly for the unordered list, it would be insert unordered list command. So I'll copy this, paste it here, and this will be insert unordered list. Cool. Now there's one thing remaining. I also want to import the list plugin which Lexical has and add it in the rich text editor inside Lexical Composer. So let me add that. So just like the history plugin on autofocus plugin, I'll import it. So here it would be lexical list plugin, and I'll import the list plugin. So just like for the undo redo options, I had to use the history plugin and add it here. Similarly, I have to add the list plugin for the list functionality, so I'll just add it here. Now if I add some text and I click on any button, you can see that it changes into an ordered list. Now if I click on enter, it would basically add points. If I click on enter again and again, it would basically, get me out of the list. Similarly, if I am here and I click on the unordered list button, it changes it to unordered list. Now there is another command for deleting a list, so let's add that. So I'll go to the list plugin. Now basically what I want is when I am inside a list inside the rich text editor, then if I click on the button again, so if I am on an ordered list and I click on the ordered list button again, it deletes it. So for that I will write some code in a minute which would basically detect what type of code block am I in. Am I in a list, am I in a table, etc. I will do that, but first let me hard code it. So I'll say block type is equal to OL, let's say. So this is an order list, so I'll say if block type is equal to OL, then it should delete it. So I'll add the delete command, so remove list command. So I'll copy it and I'll paste it here, and this would go inside the else block. Cool. Similarly for this as well, I'll paste it here and I'll replace this command with this or unordered list command, and this would be UL. So now if I click on this button, it basically removes the list. Cool, because I hard coded block type to OL. Now let's add the logic for finding out based on selection if I am on a list or a heading, etc. So let me do that. So I'll go to the toolbar plugin, and I'm adding this logic in the toolbar plugin because I need this logic for some other functionalities as well, for example the code block. So I'll go here in the toolbar plugin. Now inside the update toolbar function, this is the function which gets called every time we select something. So I will add the logic for that here. So first of all, let me make a state. So block type, set block type, use state, initial value can be, let's say, paragraph. Now here I'll say const anchor node is equal to selection dot anchor dot get node. Now from the selection I basically want to get the particular DOM element and then the node from it, and then basically I will use some helper methods which Lexical gives to know if the selected portion or the portion in which the cursor is a table or a list or whatever. So here I'll say const element is equal to anchor node dot get key. If it's equal to root, then it would be anchor node. If it's not root, then I want to get the top level element. So I will say get top level element or throw. Then I will get the element key, element dot get key. Then I want to get the DOM element from that element key. So editor dot get element by key. I'll pass in the element key. If there is no respective DOM element, then I want to return. Otherwise I want to check if it's a list node or whatever. So I will go here and I'll import a util. So import from lexical list is list node. So this would basically tell if I'm in a list or not. So if is list node element, then I will get the parent list. Let me import another function. So from lexical utils, I will import get nearest node of type. I'll also import list node from here. So I want to import the nearest list node basically. So I'll go here, get nearest node of type, pass the original anchor node and then the list node. So I want to get the nearest list node. Then I want to get the type. So basically this would be the block type. So whether it's a list, if it's a list, then is it a order list or an unordered list. If parent list is present, then I want to get the parent list tag. So get tag. If parent list not present, then I want to get the element dot get tag. Same thing. Here I'll set the block type to whatever type comes. Great. Now I will go here and I'll pass it in the list plugin as a prop. I'll go to the list plugin. Instead of this hard-coded value, I will remove it. I will add a prop. So list plugin props. I'll add an interface here. So list plugin props. Block type should be string. Block type would go here. Great. Now if I add some text and I select it and I click on the ordered list, you'll see that it changes to ordered list component. Great. Then if I click on unordered list, it basically changes to unordered list. So I can switch back between different lists by clicking on these buttons. But if I am on a particular list, so in this case, this is an ordered list already. If I click on the button again, this would be changed to normal text. So that is great. Now, since we know the active block type, that is the type of the list in which we are on, I would also like to make this button look active if I am on the ordered list, or make this button look active if I am on the unordered list. So let's do that. That would be easy. So just like for the toolbar plugin case, I was using this function. So basically spread some active props so that you can know I can show that the button is active. I will do the same. So I'll copy this. I'll go here to list plugin. I'll paste it here. I'll import this from utils. Let me remove this. So this button should be active as the block type is OL. So that means that this is the order list button. So if the block type is OL, then this button should be active. Similarly, let me copy this, paste it here. This button should be active and block type is UL. So unordered list. Let me remove this color. Now if I add some text and I convert it into an ordered list, you can see that the ordered list button gets selected. If I click on unordered list, then that button gets selected. If I click on it again, the list will be deleted, and yeah, we have just implemented the list feature. Now let's add the ability to add tables. So first of all, I will add the respective nodes in the Lexical Editor. So I'll close all the other files. I'll go here. Let me copy this from Lexical table. I will import 3 nodes. So table node, then table cell node, and then table row node. And I'll add these 3 to the nodes list, just like we did for list and heading. So where's the nodes array? I'll add them here. Great. Now let's make the table plugin. So I will go to the plugins folder, go here, table plugin.tsx, rfc. Let me add the table plugin to the toolbar plugin file. So I'll go here. Cool. Now here I will add the respective button just like I did for others. So I'll go to the list plugin. Let me copy the icon button. I'll go to table, add the icon button here. The icon would be table from React Bootstrap icons. Area level will be add table. Let me remove the on click. Let me also remove this. Now what I want is when I click on this button, it should open a modal in which I can basically enter information regarding how many rows and columns I want. So based on that information, I should construct the table. So let me make a state for the modal. So I'll say const is open, set is open is equal to use state false. If is open, then I want to show a modal component I have already created. So basically if I go to the modal component, it is a wrapper component which is using Chakra UI stuff. So the model overlay and the model content, the header, close button, etc. So basically this is just the wrapper component from Chakra UI. So it has some props like is open, children, footer, etc. So I will pass the is open here. Then on close, I'll say it should set is open to false. So this function would be called when I would click on the close button. Then I need to pass a footer. So footer would be a button. It would be a button from Chakra UI. Its variant would be ghost. And then inside it, I would say add. Now inside this, I will like to add two number fields, which will basically be the fields for the rows and columns. First, let me add the input for rows. So I'll say number input. Then inside it, I will have a number input field from Chakra UI. Its placeholder would be rows. And it should autofocus because which is the first field. Let me make the state for the rows and columns. So I'll say const rows set rows is equal to use state number, but initially it should be undefined. Also, let me add the title. So the title would be add table. So here the value would be rows. On change would be e set rows number e dot target dot value. So the value we'll get would be a string. So I would convert it into a number. So let me copy paste this for columns as well. Let me copy paste this to make the column state. So columns set columns. So columns would go here. Set columns would go here, and placeholder would be columns for this. Let me give a margin top of 4 so that there is a gap. Here I would say set is open should be true so that the modal opens. Now when I click on the add table button, it should basically add the table. So let me add the function for that. So on add table, if there are no rows or if there are no columns, that is I haven't entered them inside the fields, then I should return. I shouldn't do anything. Similarly, let me add the is disabled here as well. So if there are no rows or if there are no columns, then it should be disabled. And let me add the on click here as well. So on click would be on add table. If there are rows and columns, then we go to the next line. We need to get the editor. So let me get the editor from the list plugin. So let me get the editor import. Then let me get this. So again, we need to modify the editor content. So I will call the editor.update function. Then inside this, I'll basically use a function to get the table node using the rows and columns. So I will import from lexical table create table node with dimensions. So I would copy this. Const table node would be table node with dimensions, and it expects some params. First param is the rows, then columns, and then if I should include headers or not. I will pass true for now. You can pass anything you want. And then I will use this function to add this table node to the editor. And then I will want to basically revert the state to its initial state. So I'll say set rows should be undefined. Set columns should be undefined. Set is open should be false. Great. Okay, so now if I click on table and let's say I add 2 here and 2 here, if I click on add, you can see that nothing is shown. If I right click and I inspect it, let me go inside this div, you will see that there is a table present here, and there are 2 rows, and inside those 2 rows there are cells, but nothing is visible. So we need to add the styles for them. So for that I will go to the theme. So I have a separate theme file, and this theme file is basically using a CSS file. In the previous crash course I was using inline styles, but for this particular tutorial I will use a separate CSS file because a CSS file gives us better linting and a lot of other features, autocomplete and stuff. So here our table, you can see the autocomplete thing in action because I am using this editor theme class type. Here I'll add the table class. For the table cell, I would add a table cell class. For the table cell header, I would add the table cell header class. Now basically there is an index.cs file here. I would like to add all the styles here, so I will go here and I would like to add these styles. So here I would say table should have a margin top of 4 pixels. The table cell should have a border of 1 pixel solid and then grayish, and it should have a padding left of 6 pixel. It's the text content of the cell shouldn't be attached to the border. Then the table cell header should have a background which is grayish as well. So F2, F3, F5. Also inside each cell there will be a paragraph tag, and for this case, for me, because I'm using the Zagreb library, a p tag has a large margin bottom, so I would like to reduce that. So I will say dot table cell p, it should have a margin bottom of 4 pixels. Also let me add the fixed width to these cells. Great. Now if I click on this table icon and I enter some rows and some columns and I click on add, you can see that the table gets added. Now I can add content as much as I like, because by default tables are editable and I don't have to do any special thing for it, and I was able to do it very easily using a node function which Lexical provides. Okay, so now let's add the code block plugin. So I will go here, I will create a file as always. So code block plugin.tsx. First of all, let me go to the rich text editor component and add the nodes. So I will go here. Let me import the nodes related to code. So from Lexical code, I would like to import code node and the code highlight node, and let me add those to the nodes array. So copy them and paste them. Cool. Now let's go to the code block plugin. Let me make the component. Let me grab the icon button I have. So I'll go to the list plugin and copy this. Come here, add the icon button here. Let me import the icon button. This icon would be code square. This would be add code block. The on click would be empty for now, and let me remove this for now. Now let me copy the editor import. So let me copy this, paste it here. Then let me copy this. Then here, then I need to do one more thing. Let me add a use effect. Inside this use effect, I will add a function. So I will import from lexical code register code highlighting. So I'll copy this, paste it here, and then I'll pass the editor instance. Now let's add the on click logic. So I will add it here on add code block. Let me copy this, cons on add code block, editor.update. Then inside it, as always, I will get the selection. So get selection, then if is range selection. I want to use the wrap nodes method from lexical selection, similar to how I did for the headings. So from lexical selection, I will import wrap nodes. Let me copy this, and then wrap nodes selection, it would be a function, and let me import another function. So from lexical code, I will import create code node. So let me copy this, paste it here, and let me place the $sign here. Great. So this would basically add a code node. Now let's add the code block plugin in the toolbar plugin file. So here I'll add it. Okay, so now let's test it. Let me write something and I click on it. You can see that it gets converted to something, but this looks like the default code format for when we formatted the text using this code format, and this doesn't at all looks like a proper code block like a text editor or something. So we'll have to add some styles to make it look like that. So let's do that. So I'll go to the theme. Now I'll create a separate file for the editor or the code block because there are a lot of styles which need to be added. So I'll say import editor.css. Let me create the file. So editor.css. Great. Now just like we had different styles for text and table, etc., similarly we have those for code as well. So for the code block itself, I can pass a class to code. So I will call it editor code, and then I will have some theme classes for the actual code I will write as well. So those will come under code highlight. Right now I will place an empty object here. So let me first make the code editor through the styles I will provide, and then I will focus on the individual code I will write and the styles related to that. So I will go here and editor.css. So I will give it a background color. So it would be RGB 240, 242, and then 245. So this is a light grayish color, very light. Then I will give it a font family so that I get a coded look in my code editor. So that would be Menlo, Consolas, Monaco, and Monospace. Great. Then display should be block. Padding should be 8 pixel, 8 pixel, 8 pixel, 52 pixel. Font size should be 13 pixel. Margin should be 8 pixel 0, 12 pixel 0. Then tab size should be 2, so we'll be able to tab in the code editor as well, so give it a size of 2. Then overflow X should be auto, so that if the code overflows on the x-axis it should add a scroll bar, and then a position of relative. Now if I add some text and I click on the code block, you see that there is some style applied. You can see the background color in action, also the padding and margin, etc. Now one more thing, if I inspect it, you will see that this code block has some attributes. So one attribute is the highlight language. So currently basically JavaScript has been configured to be written in this code block. You can write anything, but obviously it would show the exact same colors because we haven't specified any styles. But right now basically we're supposed to write JavaScript inside. So this is the JavaScript, and we'll be able to change languages in a minute. I will add a select drop down through which we will be able to do it. So this language is present here. Also there is another data attribute cutter. So if I press enter, now you can see that it says 1 2 1 2 3 4. So basically the idea is that I can use this data attribute to display the line numbers here, just like I have here in most text editors, just like VS Code. And then I can use this data attribute to basically display the name of the language which has been currently selected. So that would look more intuitive and more like an editor. So let's do that. So I will use the before and after attributes of the editor code to basically get these attributes and then display them accordingly. So I'll say editor code before content would be attr. So basically using the attr function I can get a particular attribute from that DOM element where this class has been applied. So the attribute for the line number is data cutter, so I'll get that. Then position would be absolute. That is why we gave the position relative, because we want to position it absolutely. Then background color would be EEE. Then left would be 0, top would be 0, border right would be 1 pixel solid CCC. Padding would be 8 pixels. Color would be a blackish color, so 777. White space pre-wrap so that it conserves white space. It doesn't display all the numbers in one line. Then text align should be right. Min width should be 25 pixels. So now you can see 1, 2, 3, 4 in action, and these are basically the line numbers. Now it looks even more like a text editor. Now let's display the language here, or the top right. So I will say dot editor code after content is attr function, and I will basically get this attribute's name, so data highlight language, place it here. Again, position would be absolute, top would be 0, right would be 3 pixels because we want to display it on the top right. Let me give it a little padding. Text transform would be uppercase. I want it to be displayed in uppercase. Then a color, so RGB 0, 0, 0. It should be RGBA, and then 0.5. Now you can also see the language name here. Great. Now then, even more important thing, right now if I add any code here, you can see that it has a pinkish color. Normally if you write inside a file like in VS Code, you can see that each attribute has a different color, and that basically makes the text editor intuitive. Like the keywords would have a blue color, the variable name would have a yellow color, then the param name has a different color, the type has a different color, etc. Also the parentheses, etc. So basically we'll want to specify some styles for those. So I will do that keeping JavaScript or TypeScript in mind, but there are a lot of other styles as well which are for other languages which aren't specifically for JavaScript and TypeScript, because Lexical supports like 30-40 languages. But I will do that keeping JavaScript and TypeScript in mind, and you can change the styles, practice around, and change it to whatever you want. You can change the styles to match the VS Code as well, change the background to black and stuff like that. So it is very customizable, which is great. So I will go here to editor.css. Let me go to the theme. Now in the code highlight is where all the classes would go for the code styles. So how the keyword should look like, and mostly it would be colors because everything else is done. So we would be able to specify colors for different things. So keywords, comments, function names, blah blah blah. So let's do that. So first of all, let me specify the style class for the keyword. So I'll say keyword, let me name it editor token attr. Now let me copy this, go here, I'll say of 07A. So this is a bluish color. Now if I click on the code block and I type a keyword like const, you'll see it gets converted to blue, which is great. Similarly, if I type something like let, that gets converted to blue as well. Similarly, var, so that is great. Similarly, let me add styles for other stuff as well. Let me add the color style for the class constructor and the function. So I'll say class, it should have a class of editor token function. Let me copy and paste the same for function. I'll copy it, paste it here. So it would be DD4A68, so a reddish color. Now let me refresh it and let me define the function. So I'll say function meow. So you can see that the color of the function name is reddish. Now I've converted it to yellow. You can see the function name is yellow, which is not looking good at all. Let me change it to like light yellow, orange. Now if I go here, that kind of looks better. Similarly, if I have a class, so class meow, let me define a constructor. So you can see that the constructor has the same color as the function. So let me add some styles for comments as well. Similarly, if I write comments right now, you can see that the comment is still pink, also the brackets, etc. So let's add the code for that. So I'll go to the theme. Here I'll write comment, editor token comment. Let me go to editor.css. This would have a color of slate gray. Now if I go and add a comment, you can see that has a grayish look, and that is how most comments are displayed in the text editors. That is cool. Now I'll basically copy paste a bunch of styles and you'll see how it affects the look of the code I write in the code block, because there is a lot of different styles for a lot of different stuff, and I don't want to basically keep doing the thing where I add the class, etc. It would waste time. So let me add the styles for all the other stuff. So yeah, now I've written some code and you can see the different styles in action, and I've basically copied pasted it here, and also I've added some comments based on the feature they perform. So class basically changes the class constructor style, comment is for comments, then operator is for operators like plus, minus, etc., and punctuation is for brackets of arrays objects. So you can play around with them, change different styles, and basically change the text editor or whatever you are adding to whatever you want. It can literally look like VS Code if you want. So now I would like to add the logic for changing the language, because right now the default language is JavaScript, but I also want that I am able to change the language. So let's do that. So I will add a select component from Chakra UI. Then basically I need to get the supported languages for this code block, so I can get that from the Lexical code package. So this would be get code languages. So I'll say const languages is equal to get code languages, let me call it, and basically this is a string array. So I'll say languages.map language option tag value would be language, and the text inside it would be language as well. Let me add it inside a flex container. Let me give it a gap of 1, align items off center, also a size of SM. Let me add the curly braces here. Now if I go here, you can see that there are a bunch of languages available, and basically the default language is JavaScript, and that is why JavaScript is written here, but there are a lot of other supported languages as well. And basically based on the language, the code block plugin would detect that, hey, these are the necessary styles which should be applied based on this language, so the keyword, etc., and it would do that. So this is an extremely powerful feature. Now let's add the code for changing the language of a code block based on the language I select. So let me go to the toolbar plugin for that, and inside the selection change code we have, and I will add some code here. I will make 2 states, so one state for the code language and one state for the selected element key, which I will explain in a minute. So this would be the code language, this would be set code language. I will go here, I will import a function, so I'll say import from lexical code. First of all, import is code node, which I will use in a minute to see if the element currently selected is a code node, and get default code language. So basically that would be the initial state of the code language state. So I would go here, and basically this returns JavaScript. So the default language is JavaScript. Here it would be selected element key, set selected element key. So basically block type is the type of block in which we are in. So it can be a heading, it can be a OL list, a UL list, a code block, etc. But selected element key is basically the key of that selected element. So you can have multiple code blocks, you can have multiple headings, but this key would be the unique key for that particular thing. So this would basically separate the different code blocks. Its initial value would be an empty string. Great. I would copy this and I would paste it here. So this is the element key. I would just update the state here. So element key. For the block type, I will go here, else const type is equal to, let me get another function. So from rich text I will get is heading node. Let me go here. If the element is a heading node, then the type would be element.get tag, otherwise it would be element.get type. Then I will want to set the block type. Cool. Now here I would say if is code node, let me pass the element. Then I would want to set the code language to element.get language, or if there is no current language selected, then get default language. Great. Now let me pass these three states inside the code block plugin. So block type, code language, and selected element key. We need all three of these. So block type is equal to block type selected element key, selected element key, and then code language would be code language. Great. Now let me add the types for those. So code block plugin type would be code block plugin props interface. So code language would be string. Block type would be string. Selected element key would also be string. Let me extract these. So code language, block type, selected element key. So I will get the code language and I will pass it as a value to the select. Great. For the block type, I'll basically say if there is a block type, then show this, otherwise no need to show this select. So now basically the logic which I just wrote here would set the state of the code language based on the code block I am in. So if I have two code blocks with different languages, if I would basically go and click on either one of them, the state of the select would basically be changed based on that code block. Now let's add the logic for changing the language for that particular code block. So I will basically use the selected element key for that. So on change would be on language change. So I would go here, const this. E would be react.change event. So const language would be e dot target dot value. Let me add the input type here. Now editor dot update as usual. Then inside it I would say if selected element key. So if selected element key is not present, then return. Otherwise I'll say const node is equal to get node by key. So basically this function would get me that particular node based on the key. So I just explained before, every node, everything inside this lexical editor would have a key, and then basically we'll use this key to get that particular code block and then set its language. So I'll pass the key here. Then I will again need the isCode node function because I don't want to set the language for some other node type. So isCode node, let me copy this. So I will say if isCode node, then node dot set language to the language I am getting here. Great. Let me change the type again. I added the wrong type. Great. Now I am in a particular code block. If I go here and I change the language to, let's say, HTML, you can see the language changes to HTML. Also the entire highlight and everything goes away because this is not HTML. Now I can write HTML inside, so I can say div class is equal to something like p2, and now you can see that the tags have a certain format, the class and the class attributes have a certain style. That is great. Now let me go outside this block. Let me add another block. Again, this gets converted to JavaScript because the default language is JavaScript. Now if I go to this block, you can see this changes to HTML. If I go to this block, this select changes to JavaScript. So basically, based on the code block I'm in, this state is being updated from the selection change logic we have in the toolbar plugin, and the language changes accordingly. So now I can write JavaScript here. So items is equal to array. Great. So now I can have different blocks and different languages, and I can change that using this select. Great. Now also one thing more, if I am on a code block, then normal text formatting and other stuff won't work. So if I, let's say, select this items and then I click on bold, nothing happens. You can see it doesn't get converted to bold. So it is better to hide these buttons and the other table etc buttons if I am on a code block, because these things wouldn't work inside a code block, and these things don't really concern the code block as well. So I will do that. I obviously have the block type in the toolbar plugin. If I am inside a code block, the block type would be code. So I will go here. So for the top buttons, I will say that the block type should not be equal to code. If it's not the case, then they should be shown. Similarly here, for all these plugins, I would say the block type should not be equal to code. Let me add an HTML fragment. Let me copy these and paste them inside. Now if I am inside a code block, everything disappears, and if I am outside a code block like this, now every other button would appear because now they can function. Now let's go to the other two nodes, the image node and the YouTube embedding node. Now, as I explained before, there are some nodes, there are some functionalities which have nodes available in Lexical by default, and you can use them. That's cool. But for certain functionalities like adding an image or adding any custom component, a poll component, etc., you will have to do that yourself, and it's not that difficult to do that. Basically, you will have to create your own node based on the nodes you already have. So you'll extend a class, and then basically you will add some methods there which would dictate Lexical that, hey, whenever this node is added, this view should be shown, blah blah blah. So let's do that. So let me show you some examples of customization as well. So this is an example of a custom node. Here I am extending a text node, and there is a color node being created, and basically the only thing changed from the regular text node is that I can specify a color initially when I am adding that text node, and the text would basically be of that particular color. But if you're extending text node, then obviously we cannot do, we cannot show an image. If you want to show complex stuff like a React component or a HTML tag like an image tag or an iframe, etc., then you can use this decorator node. And this decorator node has a function decorate which can return any React component, any HTML element, which is great. So basically we'll extend the decorator node for the iframe, for the web view, for the YouTube video, as well as the image plugin. So let's do that. So first of all, I will create a node. So I'll come here and I'll create a folder, nodes. Then inside this nodes, I will create a node. So image node.tsx. Now let me create a node. So I'll say class image node extends decorator node, and this would have a return type. So this would be jsx.element. So this would basically be the thing which would be returned. Great. Now let me specify some types. So a normal image component has different attributes. So height, width, max width, alt text, etc. So you can add any number of attributes you want. I will add some limited ones, not a lot. So the properties would be private. So first would be the source. So that would be the source of the image. Then alt text, then height. Basically the two underscores are showing that it is a private property. You can skip that if you want. You can just add the string name entirely without the two underscores, doesn't matter. Then max width would also be a string. The error is shown because I haven't assigned them in a constructor. So let's do that. So constructor, inside the constructor I would get a bunch of stuff. So source would be a string, alt text would be a string. So I will basically have to pass these mandatorily. Then max width would be a number, width would be inherit or number. So inherit basically means that it should inherit the height or width of whatever the parent container is. Then similarly height would have the same type. So let me copy paste it. And then key. So key is basically the key of that particular element, just like I explained, the selected element key state. Now the reason why it's giving an error is because it is extending a class and I'm not calling in the super method. So I'll call that. I'll have to pass in the key here. This should be a string, my bad. So I should pass a key here, which will basically pass in this class. So key. Let me extract the other properties. So source, alt text, max width, width, height. Then I will say this dot alt text should be equal to alt text. Let me copy paste this 4 more times. So this dot width should be equal to width. My bad, I need to give it a type of the same type actually. So inherit number, inherit number, inherit number, inherit number. So it would be width or inherit. Similarly, height would be height or inherit. Then max width would be max width, and source would be source. That is the most important thing actually. Then there are some more methods which are mandatory. So first is the get type method, which would be static. So that should return a type of your node. I will just return image. Then another method is the clone method. So static clone. So the thing I will get is the image node, and I have to return an image node as well. So image node, and then I will have to return an image node as well. So here I just basically need to return a new image node. So I'll get an image node and then I have to basically return a new image node with the same properties as this node. So I just have to, reassign properties. So here I'll say alt text should be equal to node dot alt text, source should be equal to node dot source, height should be equal to node dot height, width should be equal to node dot width, max width should be equal to node dot max width. Great. Now the most important function which would basically be used to show the view is the decorate function, and this decorate function should return some HTML or some React component, whatever. So its return type would be JSX dot element. Here I would return an image component. Simple, because this is just an image node, but here you can return anything you want. You can return a React component, whatever. So again, I'll just pass in the properties into the image tag attributes. So I'll say source should be equal to this dot source, alt should be equal to this dot alt text. I will pass in the width, etc., and the style tag. So width should be equal to this dot width, height should be equal to this dot height, max width should be equal to this dot max width. Great. In addition to that, we need to specify some more functions as well, and these are related to basically serialization and deserialization under the hood. So you have to add them, and Lexical uses them under the hood to basically serialize them into HTML, deserialize them from HTML to the node, etc., etc. So there are a bunch of functions. First is create DOM. So this should return an HTML element, and this is a simple function. We just have to create an HTML element which would basically wrap this. So I'll say const span is equal to document dot create element span, and then I'll just return span. Cool, nothing else. Then there are two more functions which are important. So export DOM. So this should return DOM export output. So this export DOM would basically create an HTML element from this particular node. So I'll say const image is equal to document dot create element image tag. Then I'll say image dot set attribute source should be equal to this dot source. Similarly, let me copy it. Alt should be equal to alt text. Now you can add all the other attributes here as well, the width, max width, etc. But yeah, your choice. So I'll say element image. So you should return the element through that syntax. Now in the import DOM, we have to do the opposite. So here I was basically creating a DOM element from the node information. In this case, I will create a node from a DOM element. So I'll say static import DOM. This should return DOM conversion map or null. Here I would say return. I will use the image property name here because the main tag I'm using to display the image is image. Then this would be a function. So I will get the node, and this should return an object. So return conversion and then priority. So I'll get a priority of 0, and then the conversion would be a conversion function which I'll define separately. So I'll say convert image element. So let me copy it. Let me export it as well. Let me go here and define this function. So convert image element. Here I will get a node, and I have to return DOM conversion output or null. So if DOM node is an instance of HTML image element, that is, it is an image, then okay. Otherwise I would return null here. Here I would return a node based on the DOM I'm getting. So I'll say const source alt is equal to DOM node. Const node would be equal to, let me make a function for that as well. So I'll say export const create image node. So basically this would be a function similar to the create nodes you have for the table and heading node and code node. So if I go to, let's say, the code block plugin, you will see that there is a function create code node. Similarly, if I go to the table plugin, you have a similar function create table node. So this function would basically be vital for creating the node, and then we'll basically add it to the lexical root. So this node would basically return the node based on the information we'll pass. So this would be a function. Again, this would have some properties. So alt text would be string, height would be optional and number, max width would be optional and a number, source would be string, width would be optional and a number. I would extract those properties: alt text, height, max width, source, width. Max, I will give it a max width and optional value of 400. Here I would just do return new image node, and I will basically pass all these values here. So this function is just basically creating the image node, instantiating it, creating on object a node, and then basically returning it. And we'll basically use this function in the image plugin as well. Then let me copy this create imaging node, paste it here, and then I'll pass the source and alt text here, and I have to return the node here. So now the node class for the image node has been completed, and it was just 100 lines of code. Great. Now just like all the other functionalities where I had to pass the nodes in the nodes array in the config of the rich text editor, I have to do that for this custom node as well. So I'll copy this, I will go to rich text editor file, I'll place it here and import it. Great. Now let's make an image plugin. So let me close it. Let me go here, image plugin.tsx. Let me copy some icon button. So I'll copy this, paste it here. This would be add image. This would be empty for now. The icon would be image fill. I will basically open a modal when I click on this button. So is open set is open is equal to use state false. If it's open, then I should show a modal. So I'll do that. Modal, its title would be add image. On close would be set is open to false. Here set is open would be true. Footer would be a button with a variant of ghost, so a gray button, and it would say add image. Let me pass is open as well. Now here I will give the user the ability to do two things. The user can either add a file, or the user can add a URL for the image. So at the end of the day, we just need the source to display the image. So I'll add an input value, would be empty string for now, then on change would be an empty function for now. Placeholder would be add image URL. Let me create the state for that. So const URL set URL is equal to use state empty string. So URL would be the value, and I will update the set URL state e.target.value. Similarly, let me add another button at the bottom which would basically upload the image. So I'll add a button which would have a variant of ghost, a margin top of 4, then it would say upload image. I want that when I click on this button, the file input should show. So for that, I'll add a input file element and hide it, and user have to basically open it when I click on this button. So I'll add an input here. So input type would be file, ref would be input ref. So input ref is equal to use ref null. Let me give it a type HTML input element. So the ref would go here, then accept, it should only accept images. So image / static, so that it would only show images in the file pop-up, and obviously I want to hide it, so display should be none. So let me add the input ref here. So on click, it should call the file element. there would be an on change here, so on change e, I'll get the file, so e.target.files 0. If there is a file, then I want to set the file state, and then I will want to set the file's value to null. So let me add a file state here as well. File, set file, and this would have the type of file. Let me use the setter here, so set file, file. Great. Now I want to disable this add image button if there is no URL or no file. So there should be at least one thing. So I'll say is disabled, no URL or no file. I also want to add the file name here to the upload image button so that we can know that there is an file uploaded. So I'll say if there is a file, then file.name, otherwise upload image. All of this is done. Let me basically add the plugin to the toolbar plugin file at least. So I would go here, add the image plugin. Great. Now you can see the image plugin here. If I click on it, the modal opens. I can add an image URL here. I can also upload an image. So let me import this, and you can see that the image has been uploaded. The button is still disabled. Let me fix it. So I'll go here. It should be disabled if both are not present. Okay, now it's fixed. So now I have to add the logic, which would basically grab the image URL from the image or the URL from here and then add the image based on the create image node function I've made. So I'll say const on add image is equal to a function. Let source would be an empty string. If there is a URL, then source should be the URL. If a file is present, then source should be url.createObject URL file. Now for this particular tutorial, since this is only a front-end tutorial, I am making a temporary URL from the file. But pretty sure if you have a rich text editor component in your website or project, whatever, there would be a server present, because obviously you will want to save that text in some database, etc. So basically you will create an endpoint which would basically save the image in some cloud storage like S3, Firebase, etc., and then return the URL, and then basically you will pass that URL here, not the temporary file. But yeah, because this is just a front-end exercise, I will just use this. Now let me get the editor. So editor would be this, then const editor is equal to this hook. So here I'll say editor dot update. Inside this update function, I will say const node is equal to create image node. So this is the same function which I created, and then I'll pass the alt text. For now, this would be some dummy text. If you have modal like that, you can also provide a text field for passing in the alt text if you want. But for now, this is okay. Then I will use the insert nodes function from Lexical and then pass in the node. Great. Also want to set all the state to the default value. So set file would be undefined, set URL would be an empty string, set is open should be set to false. Let me add this on click function to this particular button. Now if I click on this image button, I go and upload an image. I click on add image, the image gets added. Now let's add the functionality for embedding a YouTube video. So I will make a YouTube node just like I did for the image node. I'll basically copy it I'll create a new file actually. YouTube node.tsx. Let me copy this image node, copy, paste. Let me change this name to YouTube node. So YouTube node. Let me replace all image nodes with YouTube node. So this would become YouTube node. Cool. Then I would come here, and the only property I need for rendering a YouTube video embedded in the regtext editor is its ID. So I'll just do ID string, and then I'll remove all of this. I'll remove all this. Here I would just get the ID and remove all of this. This would be the ID, this would be the underscore ID. Its type would be string. Now the type, I can say the type will be YouTube. Here I'll only pass the ID, so the ID would be node dot underscore ID. Here I would render an iframe, so let me remove all this. Iframe, let me give it a height and width. So let me make the height and width attributes above. Also there will be a source here, so let me make the height and width variables at the top. So here as well, let me change it to ID. Let me remove all of this. ID string. Let me change it to create YouTube node. This would become YouTube node as well. Here I would say const height is equal to 315 pixel. You can choose any height or width you want. Then the width would be 560 pixel, and I will get the source using a function. So I'll say get YouTube link is equal to, I would get the ID here, and then this would be a URL. So https www.youtube.com/embed/ the ID would go here. So I will get the get YouTube link function. I will pass the height here, I will pass the width here, and the source would go here. So this would be this dot underscore ID. Great. Here I would basically make a div to wrap this iframe, so that would be done. Now export DOM and import DOM would be slightly different, because now it's not an image component, it's an iframe. So instead of making an image, I will make an iframe. So this would be iframe, then I'll pass basically 4 attributes. So first would be an ID, so let me specify the ID name. So I'll basically use a dummy data attribute, and I'll pass it in the iframe, and then basically when I will have to extract the ID from the DOM node, I will basically extract it from this particular data variable. So I'll say data lexical YouTube. So back here, the ID attribute would be underscore ID. This would be iframe. So iframe. Height would be the height constant I made. Width would be the width constant I specified, and the source would be the same function. So get YouTube link, I'll pass in the ID, and here I would return the iframe. Cool. Here instead of image, I would write iframe here, because now I'm returning an iframe. This would be renamed to convert YouTube element. Cool. Now here I set an ID attr attribute, right? So in the convert YouTube element function, I will use the same attr to get the ID. So I'll say const ID is equal to DOM node dot get attribute, and then I'll pass the ID attr variable. Let me shift it to top. Let me remove this. So the DOM node will be an HTML element. If no ID, then return null. Let me remove this. Otherwise, I would pass the ID here and I would return the node. So the YouTube node has been made. It was simple. We literally just copied pasted the image node and changed a bunch of stuff. So the ID property, the get tab function, the clone function, the decorate method, and the other stuff. So the logic is same. It's just that we have to adjust it to meet our new components criteria. So I will go to the rich text editor now, and I will now add the YouTube node here as well. So YouTube node. Cool. Now let me make the YouTube plugin. So I will go here, new file, YouTube plugin.tsx. Here I'll create a file. Let me actually copy paste the image plugin file because the code would be same kind of. Let me rename it to YouTube plugin. I would obviously open a modal to ask the user to enter the URL. So that would remain. There is no need for a file. There is no need for input ref as well. This function would be entirely different. So let me remove this. This would be on embed. This would be embed YouTube video. The icon would be YouTube. Color scheme would be red. And the modal would open, no need for an input. Here it would say embed. This would be on embed. If the URL is not present, then I want it to be disabled. This would be embed YouTube video. Then this input would remain. I would remove this. This would be add YouTube URL. So yeah, that is okay. Let me add the YouTube plugin in the toolbar plugin file. So this will go here. Let me import it. So now you have a YouTube icon as well. I can click on it and I can add the YouTube URL. So basically we'll add the YouTube URL here and then basically extract the ID from that YouTube URL using regex. So I will not bore you with the regular expression. I have already got it. I will just use it to extract the ID from this particular YouTube URL string and then pass that ID to that create YouTube node function and add the node. So let's do that. So I'll go to the on embed function. If there is no URL, then return. Otherwise, after that, I have copy pasted a regex. So basically this regex would match the URL and basically get the ID. So the ID would be, after v is equal to. So that is basically the ID of the YouTube video. Then I would write const ID is equal to if the match is present and match to length is equal to 11. Then get the match to. This is where the ID would be, otherwise it would be null. If there is no ID, then return as well. No need to do anything. Otherwise I will say const node is equal to create YouTube node. Let me pass the ID and then I will use the insert nodes function. Add the node here. Let me wrap it with editor.update. So let me copy it. Insert node expects an array. So let me convert it into an array. Let me set the state to default as well. So set URL would become empty string and set is open would become false. This would be false. Great. Now I have a YouTube video open here. I will click on this URL, copy it, then go here, paste it, click on embed, and now I've got a YouTube video embedded here, and I can click on it and play it. And that is it for the video. I would greatly appreciate if you would subscribe to the channel, like the video, share it with your friends who are also working with Lexical, and just support me in this endeavor, and I would make sure to pump out more and more content for you guys. So I'll see you in the next video. Bye.